Hello, everyone. This is Emily Northrup. I am an academic economist and a climate activist who, should I live to 2050, will be 95 years old, just for the record. This year, I learned about and immediately became active in the Citizens Climate Lobby, or CCL. This direct political engagement has nudged to the side my expectation of utter climate catastrophe, and for me, brought to the fore the vision for how to do better than some of the worst case scenarios. So I'm going to talk about the Citizens Climate Lobby, and I'll explain our policy focus, the carbon fee and dividend. I'm going to show you lots of slides. All of the data and the studies that yielded them are available at our CCL webpage. You already know about the consequences of climate change. Something that I only recently learned about is depicted here with sunny day flooding, which occurs in many places on the East Coast. This is Miami Beach. During the highest tides each month, bay water backs up through the storm drainage system and causes flooding. So I'm going to make a connection later to this sunny day flooding. Here's a global map that reflects some of the ethical dimensions of climate change. The red nations, mostly in the global north, indicate higher emissions per person. And in this map, red, mostly in the global south, shows greater vulnerability to climate change. And when you put those two together, those who contribute the least to greenhouse gases will be most impacted by climate change. And we're currently seeing how this will play out in the contrasting tragedies of the US and Haiti to Hurricane Matthew. As of today in the US, 26 deaths have been attributed to the storm. In Haiti, the reports that are that more than 1,000 people have died, and cholera is now a huge concern. And as you know, in rich nations, poor people who have consumed and emitted so much less are more vulnerable to climate change. This is a Katrina couple who were in New Orleans during the storm, and he simply ran out of oxygen. So this is the beginning of the upbeat portion of the presentation, who is the Citizens Climate Lobby. Something of a CCL mantra is that politicians don't create political will, they respond to it. And so we are about being creating a more effective grassroots climate activism in order to get the policy that we need from our elected officials. The Citizens Climate Lobby was founded in 2007. It's now well-established organization of citizens, and we are international with the majority of our chapters in the US and Canada. We're nonpartisan, we're also nonprofit. Number 4 there, our singular mission is to lobby Congress to pass a carbon fee and dividend. And number 5, effective lobbying entails building good relationships, civil discourse, deep listening and respect, looking for common values that we can build on. And all of these practices are also critical to effectively confront the tremendous challenges of climate mitigation and increasingly climate adaptation. George Shultz was Nixon's Treasury Secretary and Reagan's Secretary of State. He's on our advisory board, as is James Hansen, the NASA scientist who in 1988 warned the US Senate about human-caused climate change, and he's been outspoken ever since. CCL members meet with our members of Congress. That's the most effective thing that we do. Again, building relationships with our elected officials, positive, respectful, listening hard for the commonalities that we can build on. We are 41,000 members strong. About 900 traveled to DC this past June for our lobby day. We visited in over 500 congressional offices. Here was one such visit with Representative Roger Williams, second from your right, Texas U.S. House District 25. In addition to lobbying, we submit letters to the editor, we write op-eds, and work with editorial boards to support the carbon fee and dividend. In 2015, we generated over 3,500 pieces of published media, and those contributed to some of these endorsements. These are newspapers that endorsed either the CCL specific proposed carbon fee and dividend or a more general carbon tax. We are organized into chapters. There's over 300 chapters in the US and another 40 worldwide. The CCL is going to be highlighted in the upcoming episode of Years of Living Dangerously, which is a National Geographic Channel series. So tune in on December 7th. And as the National Geographic episode will relate, the CCL played a significant role in getting this bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus established earlier this year. The caucus is in the U.S. House of Representatives. There's an equal number of Democrats and Republicans, and to join, a member must bring along with them a member of the other party, so its membership will remain strictly bipartisan, and the membership has recently increased to 20. So the goals, the mandate is to educate members of Congress, their fellow members of Congress, on climate change and to develop economically viable policy responses. And here's a connection to the Sunny Day flooding. Two of the founders, one a Republican and one a Democrat, both represent South Florida districts. And indeed, sea level rise occurs in both Republican and Democratic districts. So I'm just saying, and you know it to be true, shift does happen. So what is the CCL solution? We are advocating for national legislation to reduce CO2 emissions. Economists, myself included, support putting a price on carbon. That is, making carbon pollution more expensive will reduce it. The name of our proposal is the Carbon Fee and Dividend. The fee will be placed on carbon-based fuels at the source, and it starts at $15 per ton of CO2 emitted, and it'll increase steadily each year by $10. So the company that mines the coal or captures the natural gas or pumps the oil pays according to how much CO2 will be released when the fossil fuels are burned. This provides a clear market signal so businesses know what to expect and can plan. Clean energy will be cheaper than fossil fuels within a decade. This plan is revenue neutral in that all of the money collected is returned to American households on an equal basis. It is not revenue for the government. This is an important, in 48 states, there is a legal distinction made between a tax and a fee. A tax has the primary purpose of raising revenue for the government. And that's why we legitimately call our charge a fee rather than the tax, because the government does not keep the money as revenue. And this is an important distinction given the number of legislators that have signed a no new taxes pledge. So our proposal is a fee because it gives the money back. Third bullet, over half of all households will receive more in their dividend checks than they will pay in higher prices due to the fee. I'll say more about that in a moment. And then the last bullet, there's a border adjustment on goods imported from or exported to countries without an equivalent price on carbon. And this will be an incentive for other countries to also place a carbon fee on their CO2. So here's the same thing, illustrated a little bit differently. So at the extraction point, the extractors pay $15 a ton. That money goes right through the Treasury and out to households. But the fee means that anything that uses fossil fuel in its production is going to become more expensive to households, and that reduces the ability and incentive to purchase those goods. And non-fossil fuel products are going to become cheaper, relatively speaking. So there's more incentive to consume those. We hired the Regional Economic Models, Inc. to do a study of the impacts of the carbon fee and dividend. This company uses a peer-reviewed methodology. And first of all, fewer fossil fuels will be burned, and so emissions will decline. In 10 years, CO2 emissions are reduced 31% below 1990 levels. In 20 years, they are reduced 50% below 1990 levels. This is better than our Paris commitment. And for those of you who know, we need to do better than our Paris commitment. When fossil fuels are burned, they release particulate matter, and that shortens people's lives. So over 20 years, 225,000 deaths would be avoided. The dividend provides an economic stimulus, that is, people spend it, so it goes back into the economy and creates jobs. Relative to having no carbon fee and dividend, RIMI projects that 2.8 million jobs will be created over 20 years. The GDP for the nation will be about $1.4 trillion higher than without the carbon fee and dividend. The dividend begins at about $44 a month for a family of 4. And since the fee is going to rise each year, so will the dividend. We expect the dividend to be $300 per month for a family of 4 in 10 years. And in 2035, it will reach nearly $400 a month. But of course, households are also paying higher prices. And this figure shows the increase in purchasing power per person after accounting for both getting the dividend, but also paying higher prices for the goods that are consumed. And this program will increase the purchasing power of the average person. These are the results from a second study called the Household Impact Study, and it is the effect on purchasing power both after receiving the dividend and after paying higher prices. And at the left, you see 53% of all households will have an increase in their purchasing power. So for them, the dividend that they receive more than offsets the increases that in prices that they face. Another 19% will have just a very small loss in purchasing power of 0.2% or less. So overall, 72% of households experience either an increase in purchasing power or a minor loss of no more than 0.2%. And then we can look by quintile. The lowest quintile is more likely to gain purchasing power. This is because they aren't confronting the price increases that accompany taking air flights or cooling big houses or driving big cars. But people in the upper quintile will face those extra expenses, and so they are less likely to gain in purchasing power. The people in the middle quintile are most, 55%, are expected to gain rather than lose purchasing power. By race and ethnicity, more than half in each group will do better other than whites, and this reflects the higher average income of whites. And along the age distribution, the young and the elderly are more likely to gain purchasing power. So the carbon fee and dividend reduces emissions dramatically and on time, saves lives, creates jobs, and increases production, increases purchasing power for most people. So to do a little direct lobbying to you, I hope that you will send one of these messages to your 3 Washington legislators. If you're on board with the carbon fee and dividend, let them know. If not, please just let them know that you would like for them to act to address climate change. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to discuss.